Hello, and welcome to another edition of Simply Saturday, where I get to show you a card that is fast and easy to make. My name is Julie, and this is stampwithjuliebaum.com. I am an independent demonstrator with Stampin Up, and as I mentioned, today I'm going to be showing you a fast card, and today's card is a Father's Day card. Now, you can certainly take these ideas and switch them around to make a different occasion card, but let's jump right in and make our Father's Day card for today. I am starting out with a piece of our basic white cardstock. Now, this is our thick cardstock. So I have chosen to design today's card to open this way. So this card is 4 1/4 by 11 inches. And I've scored it down the middle of that at 5 1/2. So our card will be opening like this, a little bit more narrow and tall of a card. So I have that piece prepared. Then I have a piece of smoky slate cardstock. This piece is 4 inches by 5 1/4. This is going to be a panel that rests on the front of the card like so. Then I've got some more colors of cardstock strips. So let me bring those in for you. I have 5 strips. Now I chose to use basic white, smoky slate, the same as is already shown here, basic black, early espresso, and crumb cake. So you can see I'm using like a very neutral palette for the card today. These are each cut at 1 inch by 3 3/4. So you'll need your 5 strips, each cut at 1 by 3 3/4. So the first thing I'm going to do is attach these strips to my smoky slate piece here. I'm going to use my liquid glue to do this. And I'm going to start with my early espresso as my first piece. The reason that I mentioned the type of glue that I'm using is you either want to use a liquid glue so that you have time to move your piece around if necessary, or if you're using seal or a different kind of adhesive, you will want to be careful to not press your stripes down until you're sure that they are where you want them. That way you can reposition them a little bit. So let me show you what I'm talking about. All right, here is my early espresso piece. This is going at the top. So I'm going to place it, if I can pick it up. I'm going to place it at the top of my smoky slate piece. All right, let's move this out of the way. I don't need it yet. There we go. All right, so it's kind of nice to have grid paper, or in this case, my grid mat underneath. It just gives me a little bit of a visual perspective if I'm putting this on straight. So I am watching for the top border and these 2 side borders to be somewhat even. You can see I have a wider border here. So because I'm using my liquid glue, I'm able to slide this over and reposition it to get it right where I want it. All right, so I am happy with that and press it. Now, if I was using seal on the back of this, you would want to make sure that you just barely lay it down. Make sure that you get it straight before you press it down so that if you have to move it, you don't tear your paper. Okay, my next piece is going to be crumb cake. This is going to be the second piece going down. But what I'm going to do after I get my glue on here is I'm going to turn this piece upside down. Now this is just a little helpful way that I do it, and that is because I'm going to line this up right next to it, and I want it butted right up against my early espresso piece. And for me, it's easiest to do that and kind of push down than it would be to push up. So if that makes sense, let me turn this back around. This is the direction that it's going to go on the card. And if you're comfortable with putting your adhesive on and butting it up, that's totally great. Like I said, it's easier for me to turn it this way and press it down to make sure that that whole lineup is nice and tight. Okay, so my next piece is white. My next piece is the Smoky Slate Gray. For the most part, your sides are going to be just fine because you put the first one where you wanted it, but I am just noting that everything is lining up nicely. This is nice and tight against the strip of paper before it, and my edges look good. And then finally, we'll put our black piece on. Once I have my 5 strips of color here in place, I'm going to flip this over. This is going to be the direction I want it on my card. Okay, now what I'm going to do next is run this whole thing through my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine with an embossing folder. And you could really use whichever one you're in the mood for. I'm going to show you mine with the brick and mortar 3D embossing folder. And so this is going to go inside my embossing folder. It's going to get run through my machine. And a couple little points, you want to make sure that you line up the layers on your Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine correctly. If you are using a 3D embossing folder, you will only use a plate 1, and then this will go in next with the seamed edge going through first, and you'll cover it with a plate 4. So you're going to run that through the Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine, and you will end up with this piece. So now you can see the lovely brick texture on this. Again, you could choose one of many different designs, but I am liking the brick. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is a little bit of stamping. So I just have a piece of scrap white. I don't think I mentioned this in the very beginning when we were talking about papers. This piece I have is about 4 inches by 3 inches. Again, it's just a scrap. You only need enough to do your stamping. And on this particular card, I'm using Wishing You a Happy Father's Day, and then this stamp that looks like a compass. Let me show you the stamp set itself. This is called He's All That. And it is in the new 2022 to 2023 annual catalog. There are coordinating dies, and there's also some designer series paper that coordinates with this. So here's my two stamps that we're going to use. So now I'm going to do that. I want to stamp those onto this piece, leaving enough space for me to then use my dies, and then I'm just going to cut it out all in one piece. All right. So here's the Wishing You a Happy Father's Day. And the other stamp, which is kind of reminiscent of a compass. All right, and I just used my Memento black ink to do my stamping. At that point, I have plenty of space to set my dies on here and run those through my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. And I've done that off camera just to save a little bit of time, but it only takes a moment. So here's our pieces. All right, this goes together pretty quickly from here. I'm going to take this lovely embossed piece and attach it to my card base. I am going to use tear and tape for this. And the reason that I like to do that is because of the amount of texture that's on here. I feel that it's a little bit safer to use a super strong adhesive if you're going over all of this texture. So if you want to use your liquid glue, I'm sure that's fine, or your Stampin' Seal, just be generous with it so that you make sure that you get good contact in all these nooks and crannies once this is going to go onto the card base. All right, so I've got my tear and tape. Let's get one more piece. None of that needed to be pretty or fancy. It's just being used to put the 2 layers together. So since today we're making the Father's Day card, it just so happens that this is going to be airing the day before Father's Day. This is June 2022. But you could certainly take a number of other stamps from this same set and use it for all kinds of different guy themed cards. So remember not to get stuck on the idea that this is only for Father's Day. Okay, so we're going to put this fancy panel onto the card base. And I'm just eyeballing again my borders, top, bottom, and sides, to get it as straight as I can without actually measuring or making myself crazy. All right, and once I'm happy with it, I'm going to flip it over, give it a nice good press. Again, making sure that I've got a lot of contact between the adhesive and all of those bumpy layers from the embossing folder. Okay, then we're going to attach our two little sentiments that we stamped and prepared. This one, I'm going to go ahead and do flat. I will use a couple strips of tear and tape, again, because it's going on that thick embossed design. And then this one does have a direction because you have to be able to read the words. So we're going to line it up. So it's the words on here say, "Every day with you is another adventure." And because of the little directional, like the little compass needles, it's pretty easy to line up because you can use the north and the south to make sure that you're pretty straight. So I'm going to lay that down right here. And then for my wishing you a happy Father's Day, let's just take a couple of dimensionals and we'll pop this up a layer. So I will use 4. 2 would probably hold it just fine. But sometimes I just want it evenly raised and I don't want it to dip down in the middle. All right, so there's our greeting with our 4 dimensionals on there, and I'm just going to lay that down here. So again, super easy, very effective, not too, I don't know, there's not too much gobbledygook going on. That's a very technical term. Like maybe we would be a little bit more fussy with embellishments on a card for a girlfriend or a mother. I kept it pretty clean. Now, one thing I'm going to mention at this point is in the catalog on page 143, there are these very, very nice embellishments. It's number 5 on the page, and they are Rustic Metallic Adhesive Backed Dots. Now, I have seen these in person, and they are wonderful, especially for guy cards. So this is what I would choose to use to embellish this a little bit. But mine are on order. They actually got delayed. They were supposed to have arrived yesterday and they are arriving later today. So I'm going to be adding those to this card. So to give you an idea though, how to finish it up, if you don't have those metallic dots, you can also reach for the little pebble enamel shapes. You can see them here on this one. They're like little pebbles or stones, and they are featured in the January to June mini catalog, Pebbles Enamel Shapes. Now these did not carry over to the new annual catalog, so these are only available through June while supplies last. But I wanted to show you how I finished this one. You might even have these on hand. All right, so that's that. And then I will mention 2 other things as I'm wrapping this up. I am offering a special this month. I don't often do a free gift with purchase, but I am offering a special this month. And so if you go to my blog or my website, stampwithjuliebaum.com, and you click on Shop Now, you'll be redirected immediately to my online store. If you place a $50 or more order, and that's your subtotal, and you use this code, I will send you a packet of the Rustic Metallic Dots for free as a thank you. Let me show you a couple other cards that I did make with this design in mind. All right, so here's our card of the day. Here's the one we just make that I'm going to finish later with my Rustic Metallic Dots. Here is a patriotic themed card. So on this one, I used strips of real red, night of navy, and white, and a different embossing folder. All right, so that one is the same process, just a different look, embellished with some red rhinestone gems. Here is another look. This was one of a couple of unicorn themed cards that I made for my granddaughter who turned 4 last week. And so this one you can see I changed the colors of my strips of paper according to what I had planned in mind for the card and used a different embossing folder to get that look. And then let me show you one more. If you want to use the 5 strips of paper, but do not want to use an embossing folder to create a little bit of dimension, you can certainly just use designer series paper. So here I did the same steps. These are 1 inch by 3 3/4. I chose 5 DSP designs that coordinate nicely together. This is from the new Abigail Rose set of papers, and a little bit of stamping and a sentiment. So you can see that that design layout with the 5 strips of paper, either your own colors or designer paper, makes for a lovely card design. You can also choose to have your card the typical fold, which opens like this, more like a book, instead of today's version like this. So I want to thank you once again for watching this edition of Simply Saturday. There will be all kinds of information in the description below this video. And don't forget about the free gift with purchase if you would like to take advantage of that before the end of the month. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.